Good morning. I'm Gregory Mason. Welcome to First Presbyterian Church for Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church's service. We'll start with some announcements with Roseanne.
Good morning, everyone. I have more opportunities for you to help OBUUC become a good trouble congregation. We have written hundreds of postcards, but we still need another 100 postcard stamps. So please let me know if you can purchase stamps or give money for stamps. The cost of 100 postcard stamps is $56. Also, I have 3 packages of 24 postcards to be written by next Sunday, October 13th. Please see me after our service if you are willing to take a pack. When I walked in, I had 5 packs. I already got rid of 2. So, lastly, we hope you can make it to our pizza and postcard event on Friday, October 18th from 6 to 8 p.m. We will be writing postcards, and the children will help us decorate the postcards. It will be fun. Hope you can make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Roseanne. The next deadline for paper raise-write orders is October 20th. See me if you need a form. There are some upcoming dates to keep in mind. On the 20th will be our water communion service. It'll be a multi-generational service. On the 25th, from 6:30 to 8, OBUUC Halloween Fun Night and Dessert Potluck. October 27th, Halloween Play and Trunk or Treat at Bradford Community Church Unitarian Universalist in Kenosha, 10 o'clock. Costumes are encouraged. For more information and details about some of these announcements, along with others and community announcements, see your monthly email. It is not too early to think about the November Unifier. The deadline to submit is October 25th. Thank you to our volunteers today, our ushers, Christina Mondragon, Kathy Carson, our Zoom host, Shirley Reynolds, our coffee hour hosts, Claire Cross and Andrea Bumpers. And helping me out this morning up on the camera is Kaylin Simpkins. Thank you. Speaking of coffee hour, we need another host for October 20th. And it is not too early to be signing up for November. Please stay for coffee hour following the service. For those on YouTube, log into Zoom after the service for your coffee hour. The link is in today's email.
Good morning, and welcome to the services for Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Patty Fitchett. My pronouns are she and hers. I am the Director of Community Worship at Bradford Community Church Unitarian Universalist down in Kenosha, your sibling congregation. And I would like to welcome everyone here today, those of you here in the sanctuary, as well as those of you joining us online. I would like to ask you all to join us in sacred space as we light our chalice this morning.
As we light this flame, may we hear what it has to say. Come back to your center, it calls. Return to the quiet, it whispers. The quiet we long for, and that longs for us. From this stillness, always, a voice arises, if we let it. So come, friends. Let us listen once again. Let us find that flame inside that guides us back home.
And now please rise in body or in spirit as you are able, and join me in singing Acapulco, hymn number 30, Over My Head. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. Over my head, I hear singing in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. Over my head, I see trouble in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I feel gladness in the air. Over my head, I feel gladness in the air. Over my head, I feel gladness in the air. There must be a God somewhere. Over my head, I see angels in the air. Over my head, I see angels in the air. Over my head, I see angels in the air. There must be a God somewhere.
And now it's time for the message for all ages. So if all the children and those young at heart can come on forward. So once upon a time, there was a fruit vendor. And the fruit vendor wanted to attract new customers to his cart. So he decided to put up a board near his cart, and it said, "Fresh fruit sold here." And one day, a man came up to him and said, "We've seen you sell fruits. Most of the time it's fresh. So why do you put up a board saying fresh? Why do you require that advertisement?" you should rub the word fresh from the board. The vendor did so. Leaving the words fruit sold here. After some time, a woman came up and said, "We know you're selling fruit and vegetables, so I have the word fruit on your board. Please wipe off the word fruit." So the vendor did, and all that was left was sold here. After some time, another person approached him and said, "If you are sitting at the market, are you giving fruits for free? Take off the word sold from the board." The vendor did. So now, all he had was the word here. And soon a child passed by, and the child teased the vendor, saying, "Everyone in the world knows you're sitting here and not over there. Why do you have the word here on the board?" The vendor erased the last word from the board. The board is now empty, not clean as it says here, but empty. And then another person came up and said, "Only a silly person would keep such a nice board empty. Why don't you write something on it to advertise your fruits on this special day?" So why did I tell you this story this morning? This morning the service is about listening. So why would I tell you something like this about listening? And, well, everybody around us has an option to share. And everyone has a suggestion to offer, right? And most often they're offered with the best intentions. So I'm sure all of you have experienced something where someone comes up to you and says, "Maybe you should do that a little bit differently." And they tell you, there's lots of different things people tell you. But if we only listen to what everybody else thinks is best, we slowly lose the ability to hear what we know is best. And we become like the sign in the story, an empty thing that others write on. So that's why it's important for you to be able to listen to the wisdom that's inside you. Now, some people call that wisdom God. Some people call that wisdom Jiminy Cricket. Some people call that wisdom your inner voice, your conscience, your gut, all those different things. And at the end of the day, what's really the most important is that you listen to what's inside you. So, in the weeks ahead, when we start making all these decisions for this congregation, may you be mindful of your wisdom that's within you. And remember that being able to listen to your own wise inner voice is the thing that keeps us from being swept up and lost in the loud and swirling voice of others. Okay, time for the children's blessing. We are blessed. We are blessed by being here. We are blessed by being here together. Oh, they're walking.
There are many ways that we give to the life of our church, and our monetary offering is just one of those ways. Each month, we partner with a local organization that is doing great work in our community, and we share the money that we gather. For the month of October, that partner will be Big Sisters of Greater Racine. Please welcome Kathy Novak, here today to tell us about her organization. Welcome, Kathy.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Novak I'm a lifelong resident of Racine. I have been for 24 years a member of Big Sisters of Greater Racine. As a big sister in various capacities, as a board member, just make me more nervous. As a board member, as president, and as one of the very active directors who does everything. Big Sisters of Greater Racine was begun in 1968 by a group of prominent Racine women at the behest of then local Judge Algrim to form a Big Sister program to help young girls in the community. And Dodie McVicker, who's still around, and about a dozen more women did just that. 56 years later, we are still here, still promoting that same mission, that we are committed to the positive growth of young girls in our community by pairing them with caring volunteer women and encouraging friendships that foster guidance, motivation, and hope. To clarify, we are not meant to be parents, we are not grandparents, we are big sisters of every age. Like those founding women, we remain a working board. We have had women join our board who thought they could be a figurehead. That lasted about a year for them when they found out they had to do the cooking and shopping for the holiday party, the cleaning up, the planning. We do everything. We do everything ourselves, but now we do have one paid half-time staff member, the Director of Volunteers, who recruits and trains Big Sisters, matches each with a girl on our waiting list who wants a big sister, and maintaining those matches. Otherwise, the rest of us do everything, and I mean everything else. From the treasurer who oversees our very tight budget to the various committee members who plan and carry out activities, our annual banquet, our holiday party. Our funds come from our annual donor appeal, membership dues of only $25 a year, grants, 2 fundraisers, and very importantly, from the support of local groups like you who support our mission. Here I want to mention that we are having a murder at the masquerade on October 18th. The flyers are sitting on my dining room table. I apologize. It's October 18th at 5:30 at Infusino's Banquet Hall. Dinner is included, and then after the performance, the murder and the masquerade, which will include audience members as various parts, but run by an organization that knows what they're doing. And it's $60 a person, including dinner, and we're asking everyone to come either in formal dress or your best dress or your church clothes. And you can bring a mask or you can purchase one there. Anyway, more information on that at Big Sisters of Greater Racine, Inc. It's actually bigsistersracine.org, or look on our Facebook page, which is Big Sisters of Greater Racine. We also have, by the way, a private Facebook page that's only for members, Big Sisters, so that the public, and you know what kind of scary public I mean, who could find out who the little sisters are, where the big sisters live. We keep our interior information close to our vest. What I want to stress today is our current greatest need. We need more big sisters to spend a few hours, a few times a month, to help make a difference in a girl's life. And they do. Our waiting list of unmatched girls keeps growing and growing. Our big sisters are amazing, and at least one of them is a member here, Sue Hipp. She's on our board. They come from all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds. Some have been bigs for 20, 30, and even 40 years. After their little graduates from high school or moves out of town, they want to get rematched. You may know some of them. Our longtime bigs and board members include Janet Exner, Debbie Lehrer, Jen Zygmunt, Karen Von Horn, Val Zemenchik, Terry Preischel, and Sue Hip. Each of our current and bigs are living our motto, changing lives 2 by 2. If you'd like to know more, I brought literature, and Carol will put it out for you to take home, peruse, and of course, we're on Facebook. Or feel free to call me. Carol can give you my number. And thank you for having me today and your patience.
Thank you, Kathy. Our collection plate will be split between OBUUC and Big Sisters. If you would like your check to go directly to Big Sisters, make a check out to them, and the plate will be split otherwise. So thank you. In this loving community of OBUUC, we take comfort in sharing our joys and sorrows with one another. All who have a joy or a sorrow are invited to come forward and share your joy or sorrow at the microphone. Please keep your comments brief. And remember, this service is being recorded and broadcast. For both spoken and unspoken joys and sorrows, you are invited to come forward now to light a candle.
Frank Edgerton would like me to mention that his sister Patty died in South Carolina this last week. She was 89, so keep him in your thoughts.
I wanted to light a candle for my good buddy Tim Bone, who was an Over Our Head Players actor. I got to act with him in my very first Over Our Head Players show. And he just entered hospice care this week in North Carolina. He's just a delightful human being.
We light one final candle for the joys and sorrows that are on the hearts of our beloveds joining online and those of us here today. Please join me in singing There Is a Love.
Let us turn inward in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Sometimes the world outside us can be so loud, making it hard to hear those voices we once knew so well, voices that once knew us so well. And so to silence we turn to listen for the echoes of memories that make us whole, the pain of others that awakens our hearts, and the beauty of this wildly generous world that wants us back. Friends, in the quiet of this space, let us not just listen for clarity and guidance, but to become larger, Those voices whispering from deep within are not just calling us home, they are home. We don't have conversations, we are conversations. We must remember who we listen to is who we become. What we listen for determines our path. Yet sometimes the world outside us can be so loud. And so may the stillness we find here companion us and care for us, ensuring that we never get lost. So be it, and amen. So I'm so happy to be here. It's always nice to go to a different Unitarian Universalist congregation. It's kind of like going to dinner at your best friend's house. You know, you and your best friend, you have a lot of the same thing, you know all the same things, and you like all the same songs, and you have all the same beliefs, but when you go over to their house, everything's just a little bit different. Like their dad kisses the dog on the mouth, and their mom puts mushrooms in the tuna casserole. But, you know, after you're there for a while, you realize that, okay, it's okay, and the dog really is cool, and by the time you leave, you're like, okay, I really like the dog too, and the mushrooms are not bad in the tuna casserole, and it's nice. And so in preparation for this sermon on listening, I thought about times that listening was important. And I again went back to my theater training and the times when I was directing and the times I was listening in the dark when the actors were on the stage and I'm listening and I'm taking notes. And then after the rehearsal and they sat with their notebooks and I gave my notes and they listened and we did the scene again and I took my notes again and they listened. And I thought about why this came to be, and I thought, well, it's because the last time anybody listened to me, you know. But it's so important to realize that that's where the judgment part came in. That's why it was so delightful, is because they were listening. I was listening in order to. And that doesn't happen very often in our real lives. We need to listen to just listen. So years ago, I did a series of workshops called the Landmark Forum. I think they were an offshoot of EST, Earhart's seminar training, Werner Earhart maybe. And one of the things that I took away from it was the concept of powerful listening. Some folks call it active listening. Some say giving your undivided attention. Some people call it, for Christ's sake, please put down your phone. Now, I've got a small Zoom group that I meet with almost weekly. We meet very early in the morning, and we don't share very much in common. We don't share a time zone. We don't have very much in common beyond our UU faith. Now, we've met for several years now, and sometimes we stick to a theme in these morning meetings, and sometimes we just get stuck on the check-in, and that's all we accomplish. And the greatest gift among the dozens that I've received from this group of women is the gift of listening. Now, when we first started meeting, I had a notepad next to me at all times. So if anybody said anything that made me want to respond, I could jot it down and refer to it later. More often than not, if I just kept listening, my question or comment would become moot, would be washed away in the stream of the conversation. And my jotting things down, only one, made me miss a big part of my friend's story, and two, made a plan for where the conversation must go next without letting it flow. And it was really difficult for me because I have points to make. I have things to say. What if the topic changed and my fabulous point was never shared? Oh, but Patty, what if you listen? What if you learn? And more often than not, that's what happens. So our Soul Matters theme for this month is deep listening. And I've had a really interesting time taking a deep dive into the delicacies of the gift of listening. And I came across a quote by poet Joyce Sutphin. She says, "This is your chance to listen carefully. Your whole life might depend on what you hear." So, listening helps us find our way. The listening of therapists allows us to navigate our way through life. We turn to prayer to hear guidance. We listen to experts so we can get ahead. Like a flashlight that leads us through the darkness, listening helps us stay on course. And yet maybe there's more to it than that. What if listening doesn't just guide us through the world, but also creates our world? Just think about why you listen to those close to you. Is it really just to gather information, to hear the other clearly? Or is it because you've discovered in those rare moments of deep listening that a space suddenly opens up between and around the two of you? A space that is radically different than the space you inhabited a few moments prior. A space that feels sacred. A space that once you've experienced it, you never want to leave. That is why the flashlight way of understanding listening is so limited and limiting. Listening's value isn't just instrumental. It doesn't just help us collect and clarify information. It's not just a tool, it's a place. That sacred space of being deeply listened to isn't just calling us home. It is home. We don't have conversations. We are conversations. Listening literally constructs the world we live in and who we become. Consider the old story about the cricket and the coins. Two people are walking down a busy city street. Everyone is rushing to and from their work, trying to get ahead. One of the friends turns to the other and says, "Do you hear that? It's a cricket." The other friend responds with skepticism, but after focusing his attention, he finally hears it. "Wow," he says, "how did you hear that cricket with all the noise around us?" His friend responds, "It's all about how I was raised and what I was taught to listen for." He goes on, "Here, I'll show you something." The friend then reaches into his pocket and pulls out a handful of coins, nickels, quarters, dimes, and he drops them on the sidewalk. Everyone rushing by stops and listens. One wonders if this is why the poet says, "Listen carefully. Your whole life might depend on what you hear." Studs Terkel, the author, found that everyone had a great story to tell if you could be bothered to talk to them properly and listen to what they had to say. Some of his favorite stories were about people who were paid to listen intensely. Spies, priests, psychotherapists, bartenders, hostage negotiators, hairdressers, air traffic controllers, radio producers, focus group moderators, ministers. Bad listeners may not be bad people, but the effects of bad listening are profound. Anyone who has shared something personal and received a thoughtless or uncomprehending response knows how it makes your soul want to crawl back into its hiding place. Whether someone is confessing a misdeed, proposing an idea, sharing a dream, revealing an anxiety, or recalling a significant event, that person is giving up a piece of him or herself. And if you don't handle it with care, the person will start to edit future conversations with you, knowing, I can't be real with this person. Many years ago, my younger son, who is now 31, when he was about 3.5, suffered a very devastating brain injury. He was in the hospital for a month, and when we brought him home, he was unable to walk or talk or eat on his own or swallow. We fed him with a tube. We carried him. He was in a wheelchair. As soon as he got out of the hospital, family came to visit, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law came over, and we were lifting him off of the hospital bed and putting him in a chair in the living room, and they asked us about, what had gone on, and we kind of said, and this had happened and that had happened, and they watched us lift our 3-year-old and put him in the special chair, and my sister-in-law turned to me and she said, I wish one of our kids was like a baby again. And I know a lot of you know what the letters WTF stand for. But it was the lack of, did you not hear what I just said? So that's that sense that I can't be real with this person anymore. And I know that you all are on the cusp of big conversations with your congregation, and it's tough. It's not, what kind of cake do we want at the Jubilee celebration? It's tough stuff. And I came across this reading by Marge Piercy, and it's very gendered, but it's very apt, so I'm going to share it. It's called Counsels. She says, we must sit down together and reason together. We must sit down. Men standing want to hold forth. They rain down upon faces lifted. We must sit down on the floor, on the earth, on stones and mats and blankets. There must be no front to the speaking, no platform, no rostrum, no stage or table. We will not crane to see who is speaking. Perhaps we should sit in the dark. In the dark, we could utter our feelings. In the dark, we could propose and describe and suggest. In the dark, we could not see who speaks, and only the words would say what they say. Thus, saying what we feel and what we want, what we fear for ourselves and each other into the dark, perhaps we could begin to listen. Perhaps we should talk in groups small enough for everyone to speak. Perhaps we should start by speaking softly. The women must learn to dare to speak. The men must bother to listen. The women must learn to say, I think this is so, The men must learn to stop dancing solos on the ceiling. After each speaks, she or he will repeat a ritual phrase. It is not I who speaks, but the wind. Wind blows through me. Long after me is the wind. Thich Nhat Hanh observes the benefits of deep listening for enriching and sustaining our relationships. The roots of a lasting relationship are mindfulness, deep listening, and loving speech. And so, connect with yourself first. One of the best ways to build our capacity to listen deeply to others is to practice slowing down, turning our attention inward, and being present with our own experience, with our own thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations. In other words, by listening deeply to ourselves and connecting with our own experience, it becomes easier to do so for others. Make time. Deep listening requires our time. It may be helpful to build regular, intentional time into your schedule to be present for the people you love. Build a routine that works for you, whatever that looks like. The important thing is to make the time. Minimize distractions. This is the put down your phone part. Many of us have become master multitaskers, splitting our attention between multiple tasks and flicking between tabs on our screens. Deep listening can't be just another tab open. It requires our full mind and heart to show up. We don't have to sit in perfect stillness to listen deeply. Many of our favorite listening moments have transpired on walks with loved ones or over a cup of coffee and a brownie. But limiting distractions can help create the conditions for our minds to settle and be fully present. And finally, notice the urge to move away, to interrupt, to fix, distract, to move on, and choose to come back. Mindful listening is all about paying attention and noticing. And this includes noticing when tension, anxiety, or distractions arise. Often these signal a desire to move away from being with the person or the topic. For example, interrupting, changing the topic, or trying to fix the problem. When this tendency arrives, simply notice it. Name it silently. Ah, that's me trying to fix this. And gently return to listening. Be gentle with yourself. Many people didn't experience deep listening in their childhood and enter adulthood with a limited capacity for listening to and being with others' emotions. We tend to fall back on the communication styles and habits that we experienced in our family of origin, even if these are unhelpful in our adult relationships. Notice when these old tendencies are present and appreciate that it takes time to learn to communicate differently. Thankfully, deep listening does not require perfection. It requires awareness and a willingness to practice coming back home to those we love again and again. And so, Holy mystery, silent presence, uncertain bearer of the weight of it all. In these quiet moments, we listen. We listen for the maybe still breathing, perhaps still whispering, faintest sign of the universal good. We listen between the cacophony of distractions, pulling us toward untruth and falsehood. We listen amidst the shrill cries of desperation, of we've had enough, of when will they stop killing people, of how much more will the waters rise, of when will it be safe to return to my home, of how much longer can I hang on. We listen and we wait through the tumult of these days. We seek assurance. We seek the fulfillment of a promise made to ourselves, a promise made to those we have stretched to call neighbor, a promise written and enshrined and yet unfulfilled. Help us, abiding mystery, to hang on, to hold on when all is in question, when all is in doubt. Help us to stay firm to our own commitments and our own promises. Lead us back into connection, back into the bonds of humanity that help us to know each other as beloved. May we continue listening. May we keep watch. May we beckon love and justice and mercy with our own whispers, with our shouts, with our cries, until all know themselves part of the circle of love. Amen. And now please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
is our work, shared with one another in covenant, that creates and sustains this beloved community. We extinguish this chalice, but its light lives on in the directions we have chosen today. The light of this faith lives on in us together, in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. Amen and blessed be.